Sometime when I interact with this youth, they get detached from the loved one, heartbroken, relationship broken. Sometimes they come and they tell me, so, sir, I have a broken relationship. I was with somebody for 7 long years and we are expecting to make a family out of it, but suddenly the relationship got broken.
Usually, before marriage, when you're dating, it's often a chase where the man woos the woman and he puts his best face forward. It's often a performance, and with the woman as well. But when you live with someone 24/7, which you do with marriage, you see a person
Real
in their
face.
entirety, yes, then that performance cannot be put up.
In our early days, marriage was considered as one of the biggest bonding, right? Then came living relationship, and now we are hearing with this new generation situationship. In a world overflowing with information, speed, and artificial intelligence, one question that quietly shaped our life daily: how, as a human being, we can be human, whole, and balanced. Today, I have a guest from United Kingdom. She is an international wellness expert, certified by CMA, Complementary Medical Association UK. Welcome, Dr. Priya Virmani. Welcome to our show.
Thank you.
This is the
Great
second
to
time.
be here.
Second time we are doing it, right?
Great to be back.
On demand, right? Now, as we started our discussion, that in today's life where there is a speed which is defining human life more effectively. So, as an international wellness expert, you normally bridge the gap between human emotion and the journey. Because nowadays, when we are talking about speed, speed is taking over our life. People are running after for their livelihoods and missing the essence of being an human. Because we as a human, we have a lot to do in our life rather than chasing life, right? So, how you want to inspire our audience on this note?
This is a very relevant, pertinent, and timely question. Let me take you back to the jungles. When you look at the animals of greatest speed, take a lion, a tiger, a cheetah, a leopard, what is their daily routine and lifestyle like? 2 hours of intense chase for their prey, and they can often be sleeping up to 20 hours a day to recharge. What we have forgotten as human beings is that our ability for speed, our ability for more creativity, our ability for more progress, our ability to function better in life comes from qualitative rest. So if we compromise the rest, then we compromise everything else. We compromise our showing up to life. So the issue with us, for example, is not stress per se. We all undergo stress. Life is about stress. A lion and tiger, when they are in the savannah hunting for their prey, is going through stress. The problem for us now is chronic stress. So when we were cavemen and women thousands of years ago, at that point, when we were out there in the jungle and we faced any danger, that stress was heightened, but it was short-lived. Either we would fight our prey, or we would succumb, or we just freeze. So fight, flight, freeze comes from there. And that kind of stress helps the body with peak performance for short periods of time. But when that sense of stress continues, for example, a boss you're not happy with, a job you don't feel fulfilled by, a relationship that's depleting you, that you're misunderstood by, performing and not being your authentic self. These are everyday issues. This is what draws down the entire system, the entire body, the entire neurochemistry of who we are. And this chronic stress is literally not only cancer causing, but all disease causing.
Absolutely fabulous, Priya. Absolutely fabulous. Whatever insight knowledge you have given is really very impressive. I just want to, today, as a host, right? Whatever I'm saying, I'm not saying as myself. I'm representing the youth. Might be the Generation Z or Alpha generation or whatever may be, right? So when we give this kind of knowledge to our next generation or the youth, they always contradict. They say, no, we have to run fast, we have to chase money, right? And sometimes it's not always correct that each and every people who is chasing money will achieve it. They'll end up into depression. So when there is stress coming up, the second phase of life that's keep on coming is depression, because unfulfillment of achieving something direct a person or a individual towards depression. You have given a wonderful narrative. We have seen from thousands of years the jungle, the animals, they live very peacefully because they have only one objective in life, that is they have to get their food, which is their nutrition, right? Rest of the time they have to protect themselves and they have to stay calm. They don't have any aggression of buying a Ferrari or BMW or flying in a business class, right? Because they are animal and we are human. We are different. We have different kind of aspiration. So to this generation, to the coming generation, the alpha generation kids are already growing up. 2015 born kids, they might be 10 years old now. This content of ours is for the next generation. So what narrative you want to give them from your thought process, because they are running very fast?
I'll share a story with you. So last year I was in the Slovenian Alps, a very, very picturesque and stunningly beautiful part of the world. And I had an amazing guide and I had gone trekking into the Alps. It was arduous, the trek. And when we took a pause in a pretty little Slovenian village, he narrated a story to us. He told us about how there was an American entrepreneur who came to their little fishing village. And the Slovenians are people who live very hand in glove with nature, very close to nature, very community oriented, not greed oriented. And he said this American entrepreneur said to the fishermen of the village that, you're just fishing with single manual boats. I can help you create trawlers and then you can scale your business and get more fish. And these guys said, the fishermen said, and then what will happen? And the American entrepreneur said, and you will earn loads of money. And they said, and then what happens next? And once you earn loads of money, after a while, you have freedom and you can sit back and just chill and enjoy with your wife and your family and your children. And they said, we're already doing that. We have a life where we have one boat, we go out, we fish, we come back, we have a great evening with our family. If it's winter, we're around a bonfire. In summers, we're out there trekking, we're swimming in the rivers and seas and lakes. Why would we go through all this stress, in the process accumulate health issues and to return back to this? And we don't even know if we will have the lifespan to re-experience the leisurely life we now have. So what we need to remind ourselves before our children, because our children have come to this world as blank slates. They are being conditioned by us. Firstly, their parents, then the school, today's day and age, of course, social media and the overload of information, unfiltered information. You don't know from which sources, how robust the sources are. So we've got to let our children hear more voices of the Slovenian fishermen. Now, the main voices they are hearing are those of the American entrepreneurs. So we can't fault our children for responding to how our world is conditioning them. So it has to start with us adults and what we are feeding into them, because children don't respond to what you say, they respond to how you behave and what they see. So if you're telling a child, slow down, take deep breaths, play, be a child, be fully present, and your conversation at home is how to buy the next big car, the next big house, that is contradicting the kind of life you are expecting your children to lead, and you are not being an example for that yourself. So we really need to turn the spotlight on ourselves as adults. Secondly, you mentioned animals and out in the jungle and how they tend to live at ease by and large. That's because, as we know, animals work from a space of need, not of greed. Once an animal's stomach is full, they will never look at usurping the next person. But a human being, our wants are insatiable. And that really, to me, is a tragedy, because human beings, unlike any other species in the animal kingdom, any other species in the living world, has consciousness. How are we choosing to use this consciousness to create a life of ease or to create a life of dis-ease? And the statistics around the world bear it out. Today, almost most of the world, every second person has anxiety. So if there are 4 of us in this room, 2 of us have it or will experience it at some point. So
when you talk about consciousness, I can correlate it with one of the very ancient wisdom of Indian culture, which is Kriya Yoga. Right. So in Kriya Yoga, it has been said that you have to constantly witness your breath. Right? This is very important. Whatever you do in your life, but you have to constantly focus on your breath, because breath is the only aspect which define that you are alive. Right? So how this consciousness, how the youth can be more conscious in their life? As an international wellness expert, what are the advice that you're going to give it to the next generation to be more conscious?
I am so glad that you mentioned Kriya Yoga. And here I'd like to say Kriya Yoga. Kriya essentially means turning inward. Before I turn into that, let me give a very logical perspective. If I think this is me, when I die today, I can have the option to donate my organs to someone else. My eyes could be in Akash, my heart could go to Sally, my kidneys could go to Holly. So I am no more there, but different organs of mine are still pulsating, functional, working in others. So am I really my body? Clearly I'm not. So scientifically and logically then, I am something that is not part of this tool but beyond this tool, not just this tool. And therefore, we say, we know that what we are is the energy that resides in this temporary tool. And that energy is permanent, because what did we learn in science in school and quantum physics? Energy cannot be created,
Cannot be destroyed.
but it can be transformed. Therefore, isn't the wisdom to learn Kriya, which is an inward methodology to work on your breath or your life force, because breath is the metaphor of that energy. When are you declared finally dead in a mortal sense? when your breathing stops, when you no more have any breath. And breath in Vedic philosophy, in Indian wisdom, is understood very profoundly, very empoweringly as that life force and that life energy, prana. It's not just air, but it's an air that is consecrated with a life energy. And when that air and life energy decides to exit, then this stool no more gets its fuel. And let me look at it scientifically. I need to take in oxygen, which is my fuel, and it is that oxygen that then is able to function as metabolism and burn food to create fuel. Just like in our cars, we need fuel, right? So the car that maybe you and I drive in every day, we have a certain type of fuel. But if we look at the cars that a Michael Schumacher would have driven, a Formula One, then the fuel is way more refined. And therefore, again, coming into wellness, when you look at the fuel you give your body, the more refined that fuel is in the sense of the quality of air, the nutrition, the food, the sleep, the better this stool will function. It's as simple as that.
Since you are today, I just want to take one opportunity to ask you one question. Right? We know that as a human, we have an expiry date. Might be 70, 80, 100. There are people who is living 100 plus. Very rare, but people are living 70, 80 is our mortality rate. Now, when we talk about one animal, or you can say one species, right, which is tortoise, 250,
Beautiful example.
250 years, 300 years. And as per my research, you can correct me because I'm not an expert like you, this longevity of this tortoise as an animal is because they take 4 breaths in 1 minute.
Absolutely spot on there.
Spot on there.
Absolutely.
Right? But we as a human, we might take more and more breath and more stress, more and more pain. We breathe more when there's a crisis inside. So that's why pranayama comes into the picture. Yoga, Kriya Yoga comes into the picture. So what is this science behind it? Can you just explain to my audience?
So, firstly, such an apt example of the tortoise, one of the longest living in the living world. And that is attributed, as you so rightly said, to long, deep breaths. Now, one thing I tell everyone, if you want to really know how stressed you are or how relaxed you are, it takes just a few seconds. Just pause. And naturally, without any kind of effort, naturally, the next inhale you take, just see how far it goes. Does it go up to your neck? Does it go to the top of your chest, bottom of your chest, belly, deep in the belly? The higher up your breath goes, the more stressed you are. Sometimes we feel, I go through times where I feel I'm not stressed today. I'm doing fine. But when I check in with my breath, and it just takes a second, you could be in the car, you could just be in the lift, I realize, no, my body is actually telling me otherwise. Then, the more you become aware of that and you can slower your breaths, consciously take a deep inhale, as deep as you can, count, exhale from the mouth initially as deeply as you can, you see your entire body from a neurochemistry point of level starts relaxing. The parasympathetic, or which is the relaxing part, the rest and digest part, takes over. So breath is an extremely powerful way to regulate our mind and our body and our spirit. Now, better regulation of the mind and body means better longevity. Let me look in a very simple way why breath and correct breathing is so important. Say we are going for an event this evening and there are 300 people. If I stop everyone and ask them to check in on their breath, the likelihood is that almost none of us are breathing correctly for optimal health and well-being. Let me give you the very basic understanding to this. as we just said, that we need oxygen to burn the food and metabolize and create the fuel that then goes to power all the trillions of mechanisms in our body, right from the brain communicating with our muscles, our thoughts, the neurons. There's so much going on in the body. We are really a magical dance. Now, if I don't inhale and exhale completely, my oxygen tank, which is my lungs, have stale air stuck up inside. With stale air, can I expect to create good fuel in my body? And then people say, you know what? I'm doing everything right, I think, but I'm tired. Every day I'm tired. I've been experiencing fatigue for 3 months, 6 months. No matter what you do, if you aren't giving your system the correct fuel it needs, the viable fuel, if every breath is not deep and every exhalation is not taking out all the stale air, all the unused, unnecessary carbon dioxide and air from our body, you're not going to give your body the kind of building blocks it needs for its fuel to metabolize and give you the energy you need for your trillions of processes that your body and mind undergo every single day.
So you mean to say this is the source for any kind of disease that happens in our body?
This is the very basic. And yes, you are right. It is the source, and I'll tell you why. Because breathing and correct breathing and the right quantity inhale of oxygen is extremely important for metabolism. When metabolism is compromised, what starts happening? The batteries in every single cell, which is called the mitochondria, that starts underperforming, or the DNA in that starts changing. When there are enough mitochondria with changed DNA and the body is not able to overcome that, in common terms, that is called cancer.
Okay.
So, but every disease we have, every dis-ease, feeling of dis-ease can be related back to that. So things as simple as correct breathing can have a profound impact on the quality of our everyday life. And this is why I'm so passionate about the work I'm doing with children. I start from the ages of 3. I use games to teach them how to count and breathe completely, how to inhale properly, how to exhale fully, different breathing exercises. So there are so many different forms of pranayam which help invigorate different parts of the body, different organs, different mechanisms of the metabolism. So that are later stages, but at the very first stage, I would ask everyone to check in with themselves and see that they are inhaling completely, exhaling fully. Now, initially, you might have to do this in a very conscious, aware way, but the more you practice it, practice makes perfect, then it should become your default mode. So even while I'm talking to you, I should be able to inhale and exhale with greater awareness than someone who has not practiced or integrated pranayam or breathing exercises in their life.
I can tell you honestly, Priya, since I am a patient of sleep apnea, and I need machine support to sleep in the night. Otherwise, there is a lot of medical consequence that can happen with me. And I can relate, because when you are narrating this particular insight, I was just imagining myself, when was the last time I have done a deep breath? Might be 10-15 years back, right? And I can fully relate with you, what you're saying, and what is the importance of breathing in our day-to-day life. Because during the COVID time, I had to use this machine, the sleep apnea machine. And when I was not using the sleep apnea machine, and sleep apnea was not developed in a day, it takes years to develop. There are a lot of things that happens in our body. I was drowsing throughout the day in the office because I was not having an adequate amount of 7 hours or 8 hours sleeps. So when I consulted one of the doctor, they said no, this is a high time, you have to take machine, otherwise you will feel bad. Because then I was not having the full energy. When I was coming to office, I was drowsing, and I was not feeling, I cannot concentrate, right? So
You haven't given your body the fuel,
fuel that
the
needed,
basic raw material
raw
of
material,
fuel,
right?
the oxygen.
So I just want
yes.
to understand, since this is a golden opportunity for me as well as for my audience, because if I'm not making any mistake, due to this lifestyle of us nowadays, there are many people on this earth are facing the same consequence like me as a sleep apnea patient. So you are providing knowledge, teaching to the kids. So is there anything that people like we can start building from tomorrow, so that we can re-engineer whatever mistakes we have done in our past?
Firstly, thank you so much for sharing this example. It's a very pertinent example, and many will resonate with you on it.
Right.
Secondly, I would urge everyone, let's not outsource our Christmas gift this year to Santa.
Right.
Let's make it in-house, and let's all become more aware of our breathing.
Right.
It's a basic gift that we can give ourselves, which should not be a luxury but should be a necessity, and it's life-changing, and it's absolutely free. You need nothing but your breath, and your breath is the only thing I guarantee will be with you till your last breath.
Right.
So I would really urge everyone to become more aware of their breathing. And yes, I work with children, but my eldest client right now is in her late 90s.
Okay.
So I work with all ages, and increasingly research shows, with epigenetics, etc., that the brain, though it may not be as changeable or as what we call plastic, the neuroplasticity of the brain may not be as much as an adult as it is as a child, we can still make changes. Earlier, the scientific belief was, our brains are set in childhood and that's it. We've got to deal with it. But now research is more and more showing that we are constantly changing and evolving, responding to our environment, responding to triggers, responding to our own routines, our own rhythms. So it is never too late to pause and turn things around and correct breathing in a simple, non-expensive, in fact, a free way. It's absolutely free.
Can you show to my audience the best way of...
Yes, absolutely. So let me take a couple of examples. So if you are going through a particularly stressful time, you feel really triggered. I'm saying when you feel your stress is on a scale of 0 to 10, where 10 is the highest, you feel you are 7 or above. The best way is 2 quick inhales, 1 full exhale. This is how a child calms himself or herself down when they cry. If you see a child crying, they do, they do that. So that's what I'm asking you. 2 quick inhales. Just a few of these will completely reset you and will turn your reactions, your emotional center, into more logical thinking, more intelligent thinking. So you have greater clarity and greater emotional stability. Trying to create emotional stability at times of acute stress. Talking about acute, someone may have had a diagnosis of a terrible disease or a heartbreak, or someone finds out that their partner has been unfaithful. Do this to yourself. Second thing is, if you have insomnia, what is great is to practice not alternate nostril breathing, which a lot of people do. It's called Anulom Vilom or Sukha Kriya, where you breathe in through your left, exhale through your right, breathe in through your right, and then exhale through your left.
Right.
That balances both sides of the brain, the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere, the sympathetic, parasympathetic. At night, we're not looking for a balance. We're looking for the rest and digest, or the parasympathetic part, to be more activated. So what I would recommend everyone who has issues with sleep, very simple, before you sleep, and if you can in the morning as well, 11 times only left nostril breathing. Deep inhalation, as deep as you can. Count 1, 2, 3. And over time, maybe your first time you do it, you can only go up to 3. Maybe after 3 weeks, you go up to 6. Maybe in 3 months, your count is up to 10. Inhale, exhale, just 11 times. It should take
With
you
one nose.
only one nostril, only the left nostril, so that it stabilizes the parasympathetic or the rest and digest part of the body. I want to activate that before you sleep so that the quality of your sleep is
So you
good.
mean to say before we go to sleep, this practice has to be done?
Yes.
And when we wake up in the morning,
Yes.
this practice has to be done?
If you can do it when you wake up in the morning as well, that's great. But at least before you sleep. And the key is consistency, to do it every single day. It has to be integrated into your life just the way brushing your teeth is. You know,
Right.
you wouldn't brush your teeth one day and then 5 days decide, okay, today I don't have time.
Right.
It's part of your routine. It's non-negotiable. It has to be done. That's how important and essential and life-changing this breathing practice is.
Excellent, Priya. What an insight knowledge. But I, being a career coach, I interact with students, and nowadays when I interact with students, many of them says, I got panic attacked. I'm into depression mode. Right? So these are some of the terminology which I frequently interact or frequently get from this generation of students. Right? So can you give me some insight knowledge about this panic attack? How it happens? What is this all about?
The first thing I'd like to give some insight to the whole stigmatization of panic attacks. So we often feel that panic attacks are something that are very of this time, and someone having a panic attack, it's a case of stigma, it's a case of brushing under the carpet sometimes. Parents are very reticent to speak about their children having panic attacks or even themselves. Children feel often that they are in some way not normal, what's going on with them. Let's go back millennia ago, 5,000 years ago. You had a story of a glorious warrior in India called Arjuna. He was known for his focus, unflinching focus, concentration, refined concentration, the most refined that we've ever heard in any storytelling historically. And yet, one day, when he was in a battlefield, and across from him, the people he had to fight with the intention of killing were his great-granduncle, who raised him lovingly, his teacher, his guru, who had equipped him and enabled him to become one of the greatest and most glorious warriors of his time. When he was faced with that situation and he lost all emotional perspective, he was completely overcome, and the description in the holy book, the Gita, in the Mahabharata said his hands trembled, he was having heart palpitations. Are these not all signifiers of a panic attack? So it was the greatest warrior Arjuna in the middle of a battlefield who was having a panic attack when his emotional attachments were challenged. The guy who could exercise focus to the T, to minuscule detail, today had lost all sense of emotional stability. And what do we see with Arjuna? It was Lord Krishna that can be a metaphor for a higher self or a graceful way of life that was able to coach him, navigate him, mentor him, be a GPRS from a space of a panic attack, complete panic, to one of complete stability that came from surrender to the higher cosmic force that pulsates in each and every one of us. The point here is that it was only when Arjuna understood his vulnerability and shared that with Lord Krishna, who wanted his best. So when you find the right therapist or the right mentor or the right coach, Sometimes it could be a process of evolution within yourselves when he found that his vulnerability and his panic became a route to supreme strength, to absolute stability. So let's view a panic attack as nothing but the seed that if we openly encompass and embrace, we can nurture to become the most blossoming versions of ourselves.
You have changed the entire narrative of this panic attack. Entire narrative has been changed. Now, I think all my audience, who most of the time complain that I get panic attacked, will get relevance that yes, Arjuna was not an exception.
Absolutely. Let that experience of a panic attack be an experience of insight. Because as we discussed earlier in the podcast, energy cannot be created, cannot be destroyed, but it can be transformed.
From one place to another.
But the only way it will be transformed is if we acknowledge it. First step is acknowledging that yes, I am feeling that I'm not in control. I am feeling disoriented. I am feeling unstable emotionally. Arjuna, let Krishna know that this is how I'm feeling. I can't fight. And a lot of the time in life, Arjuna's fight is our fight. There are situations which overwhelm us. Arjuna was nothing but overwhelmed by that situation. Not because he had lack of confidence in his skill, but because he was being asked to exercise that skill against the people he loved most and he was emotionally attached to. And that's what happens to us as well, right? Our greatest sources of pain, pressure, come from those we are attached to and have high expectations of.
So when you talk about attachment, let's talk about detachment. Let's talk about detachment, because nowadays panic attack, yes, you have given a new narrative to panic attack. But sometimes when I interact with this youth, they get detached from the loved one, heartbroken, relationship broken. Sometimes they come and they tell me, so, sir, I have a broken relationship. I was with somebody for 7 long years and we are expecting to make a family out of it, but suddenly the relationship got broken and I'm unable to concentrate on my career. I'm unable to concentrate in my education. I meet this kind of students a lot, right? So detachment. So detachment sometimes has been filled by the world as giving up. People says, okay, there's a detachment, you have to give it up. So what is I want to hear a new narrative of detachment, how you are going to give us a new narrative. What is this all about, detachment?
We often say that detachment doesn't mean that you don't own things or have things. It doesn't mean that I don't have a Mercedes. It doesn't mean that I don't have a boyfriend. But it means that the Mercedes does not own me and the boyfriend does not control me. Let me unpack this a little. So detachment fundamentally is associated with spirituality. And in psychological terms, detachment is very often understood as self-care. Let me take a step back and look at this from the point of view of brain neurochemistry.
Okay.
Neuroscience. So in our brain, we have a few chemicals that are responsible for well-being. Serotonin, which is the joy chemical. Dopamine, which is the addictive chemical. So dopamine is the chemical that makes us go back to check our reel counts, how many people have liked and commented.
Addiction.
It's addictive. It's the anticipation of reward where we keep going back till we don't get that reward. It is imperceptibly intertwined with addiction patterns and addiction behavior. And then we have oxytocin, which is the feel-good hormone of connectivity, connection, relationships. A hug releases oxytocin, children, a pet, a loved one. Detachment, what you're essentially trying to do is you're removing your reliance on external validation and you are making yourself more self-reliant there. What do I mean? So when I get a good compliment from you, right, my dopamine goes up. But the days I don't get a good compliment from you, then my sense of well-being can be affected. But if I choose to make that in-house and I say, I will do things for myself to produce the joy chemical serotonin, and then I'm not relying on dopamine, inevitably then your sense of detachment or reliance on others, dependence on others, expectations from others
Get reduced.
goes down. So serotonin producing activities, for example, a good walk, a prayer, singing together with friends, reading a good book, writing, doing something that you enjoy, creative, or if you're a tech person, that puts you in that flow state, in that award creating state, not because I've got a million likes, but because I did something I enjoy. Let me give you a present example. Right now, I'm enjoying this podcast. This for me is a serotonin producing activity. It produces joy. I'm enjoying the process. Now, the moment this goes out as reels on Instagram, then if I start going on there to see, you know,
reaction, likes, followers.
No, if I go on in an obsessive pattern, of course there'll be curiosity and I'll probably go on once a day. But what do? The research says we sometimes go on to check our like counts 3 times a minute. You know, that is the level of obsession. So this is very, very addictive behavior and has consequences that are negative, because what dopamine does is it takes you up and it comes crashing down. That's what addiction does, right? Makes you feel great, but there is a very sharp fall from the cliff. And then you need more of it to get up the cliff. What serotonin does, because I'm focusing on processes in my control, like this podcast, it produces joy at a sustainable level where I foster my own sense of self-worth and self-reliance. So this is how detachment looks from a neuroscience perspective.
And wonderfully explained, Priya. Now, I just want to give another insight knowledge to you so that you can give us more narrative on this. When we read Gita, there is a verse over there that karam karo, fal ki bare mein mat dekho, right? So that's what it says. So what does it mean? It means that we have to just walk and don't, because you have given a perfect example of detachment where you have said, okay, now we are doing this podcast, you are enjoying this particular flow, but when this podcast goes on live, if you have some expectations on the comment, on the like, on the reels, so your dopamine is in the driver's seat, is controlling you, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So if you detach, you have done your walk, and you know you have delivered something perfectly,
yes,
right? So you should not look for the fruits, right? So you mean to say that, or is that also have a different narrative?
So I do feel that this is probably the most powerful and popular takeaway from the Gita,
Right.
that do your duty without any expectation of the results. Again, I'd like to step back. First and foremost, I'd like to take a look at Lord Krishna and his intentions. What are his intentions? His intentions for every one of us is that we do our best and we experience the highest taste in life. We evolve and rise to our highest potential, which we can say is our divine potential. And therefore the Gita, the song of God, is given to a human being because we have the potential to be the song of God, right? And it's a GPRS to navigate ourselves to reaching there. Now, having said that, Lord Krishna, according to me, was one of the greatest transformation coaches. So transformation coach is not, according to be, something that was born 10 years ago, because Lord Krishna is a great transformation coach and tremendous insight into remarkable, extraordinary insight into human nature and science. So, what he is actually saying, in my understanding, in my interpretation, is when you focus entirely on the task, anyways, by default, the likelihood of that being positive increases. But when my focus is more on the results,
On the
outcome, then my giving my best to the task is compromised because my attention is
Deviated.
split. Yes.
Diffused.
Yes. Then I'm not doing my best. And even when I do my best, if things don't work out, Lord Krishna understands, and he's alerting us to that, making us aware that the outcome is not just what I put in. There are so many other factors. So while I've enjoyed this podcast, we feel we've had a really insightful, helpful, empowering conversation. What the algorithm of YouTube or Instagram will say might not be in line with a non-dopamine conversation. Ours is a serotonin conversation, and social media works on dopamine hits.
Excellent.
So Lord Krishna is just giving us an understanding of how the science of the cosmos works, how human psychology can best integrate itself to develop to its highest, and how it can handle life with awareness.
Perfect. Now, whatever narrative you have given me, I'm just reconnecting one of the process that we use in our organization when we recruit people, right? So there is a normal procedures at the time of recruitment, the final round, right? I interact with the candidate and I try to figure it out what exactly they are focusing. So when I found candidate who is more focusing on salaries, what are the parks, how much I'm going to earn, right? So it gives me, I take a back seat, right? And I try to understand this particular candidate, if he joins my organization, will be only focusing on pay date. He's not going to focus on
The process.
the work, because it's a byproduct. Salary is a byproduct. Earning money is a byproduct, right? So you have given an excellent narrative, and I appreciate that.
Thank
Right?
you. Thank
Now,
you. I'm glad it resonated.
We are moving towards the closure, right? Now let's talk about pain. Pain is very important aspect in life, because we say pain is universal, but suffering isn't. So how you are going to enlighten us on that? Because pain is something people feel, and I know if you consider breath is a seed of the problem that the body gets into, then pain is also connected with our nervous system, the neurological system, our thinking pattern. And this can be the starting point for all kind of panic attack, detachment, depression, right? Although I have a different example I want to share with you, but before I share my example, I just want to hear from your end how you are going to enlighten us on pain. Very important aspect.
Absolutely. So pain doesn't spare anyone. No matter who you are, whether you're from royalty, whether you're a billionaire, and I have worked with some billionaires, and I can say that it spares no one. As long as we are in this mortal, impermanent form, we all go through pain, whether it's emotional, physical. Like Steve Jobs said, he said when he was struck with pancreatic cancer, he said, I'm a billionaire, but if only I could afford 1 hour of painlessness. So pain doesn't spare anyone. But when we are able to navigate our pain by reframing it in helpful, empowering, supportive ways, and that's where a coach or therapist, a good coach, a reliable therapist can be key, we can make pain our power. And when pain becomes your power, trust me, that's your superpower in life. Let me pin this down with a concrete example. I will take you back to a story millennia ago from Vedic wisdom. So there's a very popular story from the Puranas of how the oceans were churned. They believed that there are going to be jewels and precious things coming out of the ocean, and most of all, they were looking for Amrit, or the nectar of immortality. And Vishnu said to the gods and the demons that if you churn the oceans, from the ocean will ultimately emerge this nectar of immortality. Both sides wanted it, and they started churning. One of the first things that emerged from the ocean was poison. And so we must understand that the process to nectar involves poison, right? When poison emerged, it was Lord Shiva on Parvati's beckoning to save the world from that poison, who ingested it. And it was stopped. Lord Goddess Parvati stopped it at his throat.
Nilkantha, we say.
Absolutely. And he became the blue-throated one, or Nilakant. And after that, what did Lord Shiva do? He flaunted his poison to the entire world in such a way that till today we venerate it, we pray to it. So when you go through a difficult experience, whatever the experience might be, however difficult it might be, it differs from one person to the other, it differs at different stages of your life. But when you can learn to reframe that into learning points, that pain becomes your flaunt point, not your point to hide or brush under the carpet.
Excellent narrative. I just want to give another example. I was just watching one movie and the story was all about the World Trade Center. Two firemen got stuck inside at the time of this World Trade Center's crisis. And one of the firemen was asking the other one, "Are you okay? Are you feeling pain?" The other fireman responded back by saying, "Yes, I'm feeling pain, but I'm happy because I'm alive."
Wow. Again, reframing. He had pain, but the way he framed and reframed it.
When, as a human, we have pain, it means we are alive.
Absolutely. And can I just give that little bit of context? So when you do that, you say, I'm in pain, but I'm grateful that I was spared. I'm still alive. The gratitude is greater than the pain. Gratitude produces serotonin, or the joy chemical, the feel-good chemical, and endorphin, serotonin, oxytocin. These are natural painkillers. They can help us deal with situations of pain from a neurochemistry, neurological point of view.
So pain should be considered as your friend.
Absolutely. As long as you can turn it into lesson points, as long as we can reframe it in that way, as long as we can learn to process and move on, not just move on, but move with what we've learned to more powerful spaces, then just like Lord Shiva, it's our flaunt point. It's the point at which we can really learn to be devoted to the higher possibility and divinity and awareness within us.
So let me ask you another aspect which I normally encounter nowadays with the youth, the relationship. So the relationship is not so much steady, right? It's frequently getting changed, and some of them are pretty okay with that. In our early days, marriage was considered as one of the biggest bonding, right? Then came living relationship, and now we are hearing with this new generation, situationship. We don't know what is this all about, right? So just enlighten us on that.
I would like to look at how to choose your partner from a space of wisdom. And let me ground that space of wisdom in neuroscience, right? So we often look at a partner and say, how compatible are we? Compatible in sense of maybe music, food, culture, money, expenditure. But psychology and science suggest that the most powerful way to understand if a partner is suitable for you, is compatible, is right, is to see if your nervous systems or your emotional response to life is compatible with each other. Right? A partner is one of the most important decisions you will ever make in your life. It's not just going to affect you in every way of your life, but it's going to affect generations to come if you have children together. So therefore, choosing a partner where you're not walking on eggshells, where you know you will disagree and have arguments as everyone does, but you will have arguments and disagreements that leave you in a space of feeling more bonded. So when we have an argument with a loved one, depending on how we navigate that difference in opinion and that energy clash, we can either reach a more bonded space or we can be more fragile and more breakable. So as a psychologist, as a therapist, for me, when any two people come to me, it could be friends, it could be business partners, it could be relationship partners, it could be siblings, the best way that I'm able to gauge the present and forecast the future health of their relationship and their bond is by observing how they conduct an argument. So arguments that happen to understand one another better, to try and create some sense of consensus, are ones that will leave a relationship more glued. But arguments which are just about my side versus your side,
Debating.
he said versus she said, personal insults, these will leave a relationship more fragile.
So that's why, yeah, it's absolutely. That's why we say, in when we see two people arguing with each other, we say it's better discuss rather debate.
Yes. So it's the energy that you bring to the argument, and the energy comes from where your nervous system is located. How evolved are you? So someone who could be a very evolved nervous system, or even fragile, but a good person. And if you attract someone who has a needy nervous system or a very fragile ego, you're walking on eggshells. How will you support or be supported? How will you evolve? And we are looking at relationships as one space that offer us to be our better selves in life. So let's, just like I said, let's look at Krishna's intention behind the Gita. Let's look at what the intention of a relationship is. Every relationship should come into your life through good times and bad to help you feel more supported, to help you evolve better, and to give you the opportunity to be that sense of support, backbone, and witness to someone else too. That's when you see the blossom of being human on this journey.
Perfect. Excellent, Priya. I just want to add one important aspect, that we have seen relationship, pre-marriage relationship and post-marriage relationship absolutely change its direction. In a pre-marriage relationship, two partners were having a very deep love with each other, but as the marriage got converted, we have seen people are getting more detached. So, what is your insight on that?
Usually before marriage, when you're dating, it's often a chase where the man woos the woman and he puts his best face forward. It's often a performance, and with the woman as well. But when you live with someone 24/7, which you do with marriage, you see a person
Real
in
face.
their entirety. Yes, then that performance cannot be put up. And what we need to do is we need to move from the in-love hormonal structure to the sustained everyday showing up of love. A lot of partners are unable to make that transition. They don't have that help, that guide, that awareness, because a lot of our films, especially in India, all the Bollywood films, leave once the chase is complete and the difficult situation is overcome and the boy gets girl. How the boy lives with girl is usually not looked at, right? It is not given importance to in our narratives, because that is not the romantic part, the narrative that will get eyeballs, but that is the part that creates the sustainable kind of love where we actually support each other in everyday life to be better versions of ourselves.
So that's why you mean to say the relationship in living relationship concept comes in the millennium time, right?
There are a lot of reasons for living relationships in the
And
West.
nowadays the youth is saying situational ship. What is that?
In the West, we see people want to live in also, because I have a lot of friends who say a lot of the time relationships don't work out and we just have lawyers making the most out of our pain. We don't want to do that. And
Right.
when they don't need the social acceptance of marriage, Western societies don't. They find it perfectly fine to be in
Live-in
a live-in
relationship,
relationship.
yeah.
And if that doesn't work, at least they don't have to go through financial and the emotional pain of hiring lawyers, and that can be a very, very dehumanizing process. So they save themselves from that pain. About situationships, it just goes to show that where we are compromised on is our own clarity, because the more situationships we get into, we are getting ourselves into a complicated energy space. When your energy is complicated and compromised, then your life force will not be able to shine. It is like clouds coming over the sun. So it's only when the clouds lift can the sun come through. When that energy gets uncomplicated, that's when you can shine through at your fullest.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Priya Virmani, for enlightening our audience. It was
My
really,
joy.
it was really very inspiring podcast, and I think the knowledge, the wisdom that you have cannot be shared in one or two podcasts. It needs more series like that. But unfortunately, you are in London, so it's a privilege when you come back to your home during these winters. We get the opportunity to interact with you, to invite you for this lovely podcast. And in 2026, I'm manifesting that I will be in London and I will be doing one podcast with you.
Absolutely. Here's
Let me
to
see
that.
whether my manifestations get a response from the divine power or not.
Here's
Thank
to
you.
that, and
Wonderful,
cheers to that.
wonderful interaction. And as an audience, you have got all the insight knowledge which will help you to reshape yourself and to be a human, a little bit human, because we are all human and we have to be a little bit more human. You have to give some time to yourself. You have to give some time to your family, to your near and dear ones. Don't follow that motivational talks which inspire you to say, chase money, because chasing money is not your ultimate goal. Your ultimate goal as a human being is to live this wonderful life which you have been blessed by this divine God. Thank you. Thank you, Priya. Wonderful. God
Thank
bless with you.
you. Thank you.